On April 24th, an AI coding agent deleted a company's entire production database, deleted the backups, and then wrote a confession that started with the words, "I'm sorry, I violated every principle I was given." 9 seconds, one company, 3 months of data gone. That same model running that agent was Claude Opus 4.6, the same lab that is about to be valued at $900 billion. We're going to talk about whether you should ever, under any circumstances, give an agent production credentials or access, and we're going to call 3 real business ideas no fence sitting.
Uh, this Human in the Loop, a weekly podcast where two builders go through the noise of the AI hype cycle to talk about what actually matters. My name is Oscar Gallo. I'm an AI engineer entrepreneur, and I live in the intersection of engineering and business.
And I'm Matt Wozniak, a serial builder and relentless executor. I focus on what works and what doesn't. Let's get into it. So our first section today, signal or noise. We're going to talk about a few different news stories. First and foremost is the Anthropic valuation. Anthropic coming up on $900 billion in valuation since they're looking at a $50 billion raise. So what happened? On April 29th, 2026, Bloomberg and CNBC reported that Anthropic is weighing fresh funding offers that would value their company at more than $900 billion. The round under discussion is roughly $50 billion intake. Anthropic raised its previous round in February at a $380 billion valuation. At $900 billion, Anthropic surpasses OpenAI, which closed its own $122 billion round at an $852 billion post-money valuation earlier this year. TechCrunch reports the decision is expected at a board meeting in May, and a public listing could come out as early as October 2026. This deal lands 6 days after Google announced it would invest up to $40 billion in Anthropic, which we covered in the last episode. Run rate revenue has reportedly crossed $30 billion, up from a roughly $9 billion at the end of 2025. This is a lot of money we're talking about. It almost doesn't even seem real. And to be fair, Anthropic's been a company since around 2020, 2021, and they're already approaching a $1 trillion company, which, I don't know, that took Apple like 18, 20 years to get. I don't quote
Yeah,
me on those numbers, but it definitely wasn't 5 years, which is kind of crazy. $900 billion for a company whose flagship public model trails its own gated model is the textbook definition of a top tick, right? The run rate revenue at $30 billion, it's real. 30x is not. When the labs are valued like sovereign wealth funds, this is more than most countries are worth, right? Somebody's wrong, and history says who's going to be holding the bag, right?
I agree. It's complicated, right? It's really complicated because the reality is that 900 billion feels like a overinflated, crazy amount of money. Because let's be real, okay? As Anthropic users that we are, both of us, and while their agents are great, that's probably the best, even if you want to say, if you check how much money they are making, the revenue, it's minimal compared with this evaluation. We can see that this is more like we imagine if we continue like this for some years and exponential growth, right? We will get to those numbers. But, and I'm going to use a very stupid example, okay? My kid, when he was born, he was like this size, okay? A tiny thing, okay? In a year and a half, okay, he's, I don't know, like a meter tall, probably a little bit more. If I say, oh, with this road grade, he's going to be 10 meters in 5 years, right? No, of course not. You cannot think like that. But this is that's literally what they are saying right here. This idea of the exponential growth forever, it's impossible. And you make a great case about Apple. Apple took so many years to be able to be the first $1 trillion business. But it took them more than a simple model. to do that. We're talking about iPhones, MacBook Pros, iPads,
Every
like
year, every year.
so many computers, AirPods, right?
Yeah,
There's
we both
so
got them.
many things that they need to make. So many, okay? To even be close to be $1 trillion company, that the idea that Anthropic is $1 billion company is outrageous. It's outrageous because they cannot even provide 100% uptime of their own products. They cannot. They cannot. Like the reality is like they are failing all the time. I think that right now they are in like around 89% uptime, which is horrible. Like it's really bad. It's really bad. So we can clearly see that they cannot provide the service as we expect. And if we are expecting Anthropic to keep growing at this rate, okay, from going from 9 billion to 30 billion, and then from 30 to maybe 90 billion, for example, they will need to provide more service and they don't have the compute to do it. And of course, like Google jump to save them a little bit there, but I don't think it's enough. I don't think it's enough. This feels, from my point of view, as a complete overvaluation and as complete noise. If I had the opportunity today to buy their stock on launch, I won't do it. I really won't. And this is not financial advice, okay? I don't do anything that I say, but this feels like they are just like buying exposure, right? In a lot of ways, they are just trying to make it look like bigger than it actually is.
Yeah, and $900 billion. I guess we'll find out in October what the final actual number is, but either way, it's an insane, unimaginable amount of money. And I'm pretty sure we talked, like Grok is going up to $300 a month. We're both already paying like the pro version of Claude or whatever, right? I can't imagine
Mhm.
the API billing statistics, but these boardrooms, when they sign a check saying, okay, send them $50 billion, they're not doing it out of the goodness of their heart. They're expecting a return on investment, right?
Mhm.
And what's going to happen if they don't get a return on investment? They're going to not be happy. That'll be sure. Um, to say the least, they won't be happy. But it makes me worried about businesses that are pivoting to like, hey, let's use Claude. Let's go all in on Claude. We're like using Claude every day. Use as many tokens as you can. And every AI startup that is also building on top of Claude, right? It's how many months do they have before token spend totally eats up their P&L? Like if Claude one day just says,
Mhm.
hey, sorry, this model is so sick that we have to charge 100 times more per token, and also we're turning off the old models. Legacy models are gone. We only got this model, and it's way more expensive. Thanks, everybody. What's that going to mean for
That can
people, right?
happen.
It could
Mhm.
100% happen. Like especially if they corner the market, which we've seen happen in multiple different industries. So I agree. This is noise trying to say it's just more money. We got more money, but what are they doing with it? And even though I use Claude, I don't think it's worth $1 trillion.
Yeah,
To be frank, like I don't know.
exactly. My case is like, it's outrageous that you're telling me that Anthropic has a higher valuation than OpenAI when Anthropic was born from OpenAI in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
It's literally like that, right? So this is really interesting because we can make the case that Anthropic has a better product market fit. That's true, okay? But again, they don't have the computing to scale. And if you're
Mhm.
thinking about the future, OpenAI has the computing to scale. They do. They completely do. If they want to get 20 more million users tomorrow, they can. Anthropic cannot do that.
Mhm.
They cannot, and we
Yeah.
can see it because they're already removing like cloud code and other things from their lower tiers because they don't have the computing. That's the reality. So I will imagine, from my point of view, if you're thinking about the future and about how much you can scale this, you will think, yeah, for sure, OpenAI has a better opportunity because they can actually scale to those millions of users more. While Anthropic is stuck on this limbo of not getting enough computing. So of course it feels outrageous in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
And to be fair, both OpenAI and Anthropic are north of $850 billion valuation. So
Mhm.
the next, however many years, the next possibly 18 months to 24 months could come down to is who's spending their money more forward in a more forward thinking way, right? So like you said, if
Mhm.
OpenAI is like really pounding data centers and compute power, then when somebody goes to choose an AI model, right? They're not thinking which company is worth $1 trillion. They're thinking like, which one makes my life easier? Which one can I use more consistently, right? There's times where I'm sitting there and I'm using Claude and it just says, oh, sorry, 500 error. We're having trouble processing your request. And I'm like, all right, close the window, open ChatGPT, and let's keep going because I got to work, right? Like, I got stuff I want to do. I got very limited time to work and I can't sit here waiting for Claude to like come meet me halfway.
That happened to me already, and it's true. It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating, especially when you're paying $200 per month.
Exactly. Yeah, and if it goes much higher, like I'll just cancel it because it's not worth that much to me right now. At least it would have to be insane for it. 200 is already a lot, if I'm being honest.
Mhm.
And
I
I use it a
agree.
lot. I use it all day. Use it all day, every day.
Yes, we do. Okay, let's jump into the second news of this week, which is an AI agent deletes a production database in 9 seconds. Great. So let's go with it. On April 24th, an AI coding agent running Cursor with Cloud Opus 4.6 deleted the entire production database from a business called PocketOS, including all volume level backups, everything. Okay. The whole event took around 9 seconds. The agent ran into a credential mismatch in the staging environment and decided to fix the problem by deleting a railway volume, which is where they had the database, right? It went looking for an API token, found one in an unrelated file, and just used the token. And the token had been created for managing custom domains, but it was scope for any operation really. They didn't have the right permissions. So it had included the destructive ones, right? So the agent did not pause. It didn't ask. It just went through it. And when asked to explain itself afterwards, the agent wrote, "Oh, I violated every principle I was given. I guess I acted without permission. I failed it.
Whoops.
I failed to understand the command before running it." So Railwell eventually restored the data using a 48-hour delayed delete recovery process. So PocketOS is operational again, but the story is not about the recovery. The story is about the 9 seconds it took for this agent to completely destroy everything. And I will make a case that this is not like an isolated case, okay, at all. The reality is that most people have no idea how they should treat agents, okay? In a lot of ways, they think of us agents as, oh, this is just like another developer that is in our team, right? So they just give everything that they will give to the other developers. And that's a big issue because these are not people, okay? These are not people. And we need to understand that the whole job of an AI agent is to bring solutions, is to do something to a point that it even ignores security or even its own training because the goal is more important than anything else. This is not surprising, and this is actually not the first time news like this have come into the news. It happens more than we would like to accept. And this is mostly because there's this ignorance or this lack of knowledge about what we should do with the agents, how we should treat the agents, what is correct to give to the agents and what is not correct.
Yeah, I would totally call this a skill issue.
Yeah.
There's, and I don't know. I wouldn't call it a lack of. It's totally a lack of knowledge, but it's also a level of inexperience, right? And obviously, that's not the answer. Just like giving an agent access to your production credentials isn't the answer. And there's another story in here where the company wasn't saved by anyone at the company, if I'm understanding it right. They were actually saved by Railway having decent security measures in their software, right? So it's not like anybody at the company had this. Maybe it's a configuration that they set, but like 3 months of production data. That's not that much. So this is obviously a very fresh company. PocketOS. I don't know anything about the founders or if they've got past ventures or anything like that, but 3 months of production data is very little. It's almost one full quarter, right? I guess it is one full
Mhm,
quarter.
mhm.
So it's a lot to lose 100% of your data, but there's about 10 different steps that could have been in place to prevent this, and not only prevent it, save it from being so catastrophic, right? So I'm going to call this absolutely signal. This is something you want to pay attention to, especially if you're at a big enterprise company and you're in the process of rolling out agentic AI. And even more so if you're at a startup and you're building, you're vibe coding everything. You don't have the security chops that someone who's been in the industry for so long might have. And even if you've been in the industry so long and you do have the security chops, you might not have the agentic experience that somebody else who's been using it consistently the past 5, 6 years has.
Exactly. And this is what we're working in our AI ready AI readiness guidelines. Because just as these business, there are many businesses with the same issues. Not only like data deletion databases getting clean completely, and even code being deleted randomly by these agents. So this is why we're creating our guidelines, because the reality is having AI readiness guidelines is really important in this day and age of AI agents doing a lot of work. So I will say this is 100% signal, please.
Yeah.
If you have questions, you can ask us about it. We're happy to help, but just don't do this. Don't
No.
give absolute access to your agents ever. Okay? Ever. Nope. Don't do it, please. Okay?
Yeah.
So yeah.
We've been in the room with clients when they bring this up as like an option, like, hey, why don't we just do this? And we're both like, nope, like take it out of your head and throw it away because that's you don't ever want to even consider that. We potentially saved I don't know how many people from being this exact story. So you're welcome if you're watching. A pleasure doing business with you. Okay, so our next story, we're going to China. So in this story, China blocks the Meta Manus deal. Then Meta decided to just buy Assured Robot Intelligence a few days later. This one hits a little closer to home for me because I'm actually recording from Singapore as we speak. So what happened? On April 27, 2026, China's National Development and Reform Commission ordered the cancellation of Meta's $2 billion acquisition of Manus, a Singapore-based agentic AI startup founded with Chinese engineers. Meta announced the deal in December 2025, upon which Beijing opened a probe in January and then killed it in April. Bloomberg called the Manus model officially dead 2 days later. On May 1st, 2026, 4 days after the Manus block, Meta acquired Assured Robot Intelligence, ARI, a humanoid robotics startup founded by former NVIDIA researcher, I might butcher his name, but Xiaolong Wang. Terms were not disclosed. ARI's foundation models for humanoid robots and the team itself are now inside Meta Superintelligence Labs. Two stories, same arc. Foreign investment risk killed one Meta AI deal. Meta wrote a check for a different one inside the same wake. My initial thought on this is I don't think these two deals. They might be related in some way, but it's not like Meta had this Meta Manus deal destroyed, so they're like, oh, let's just go buy another one. This you're not going to go through this level of discussion in 4 days. So I'm assuming both were already in discussion in parallel, right? Maybe they wanted them both to work together, so they're probably scrambling to find something else. But there's no way that they were like, oh, this one fell through, pick up a new one, right? 4 days, right? They're not just going to work that fast. I've seen other businesses in similar talks like this, and it never goes as fast. These are month-long discussions, months long. But it is interesting, the whole China angle, like how they're even able to kill a deal like this just because some of the engineers are Chinese. I'm not sure how exactly that works, but it's not the first time we've seen it. It won't be the last time we've seen it. There's obviously friction on national scale, and we discussed this with the chips in the last episode, right? U.S. companies are going like they're going to find friction when they're trying to, if they even consider buying the Huawei chips that we discussed. China's going to find friction with people from their country trying to start up enterprises that are potentially going to be bought out by U.S. companies. So This isn't like a political podcast, but politics touch everything
Mhm.
in everyone's lives. So this story is mostly political, and I think it's worth paying attention to, mostly just because how long is it going to be that the models and tools you get to use are dictated by your country's politics? Is
Mhm.
something that I'm just thinking of, right? And being in Singapore, I didn't know this company was even existed, but yeah, it's Singapore is very neutral when it comes to world politics, as far as I'm aware. And yet, you're in Europe, right? So I don't even know if you got access to anything. It's probably very heavily regulated.
Here, there's nothing. That's not even a good point to make there. But yeah, this is interesting because, so long story short, the founder of Manus, he realized really fast that he has an opportunity to sell this eventually, right? Because he's
Mm-hmm.
super smart. So that's why he decided to actually do this in Singapore. But what the China's National Development and Reform Commission is saying is that a lot of the research you actually did it in our universities and in our centers to be able to do this. So because of that, we own a part of the IP of the intellectual property of Manus. And I know Manus. Actually, I used it before. It's pretty much like a browser, but it's fully agentic. And it's pretty decent. This was before Perplexity, Comet, and all these like browsers, agentic browsers. And I will say that even back then, it was already better than today's browser agents. It was really good. It was able to not only to do research and stuff like that. It was able to create slides, presentations, like many things. It was fairly good. And their whole idea was that the web is going to change. We cannot have these old ways of doing things now. The agents are going to be really good at that. And the whole thing is like their model is actually pretty good at navigating and doing things on the web. It's amazing. It's fast. It's very performant. So this is how China got involved into the Singaporean business. And the worst part about this is I know that the founder was already in San Francisco. Yeah, he was already there. And my thinking is that they won't let this guy sell the business, but I think it will happen the same with Windsurf, where Google took the founder of Windsurf and let Windsurf die. I think it's going to be exactly the same. I think that Meta will say, okay, you can keep Manus, right? I keep the person who built it because he already has everything in his head. I don't need the actual business. It's a nice to have, don't get me wrong, right? The code is ready and whatever. But to this point, the knowledge of this person is more important than the product. So I think they will just jump the whole process, like ignoring completely the Singaporean business, ignoring the Chinese business, and just hire this guy to do exactly that. And but I'm sure China will fight back because right now we can see this divide of the US not letting China buy the latest Nvidia chips, and even the founder of Nvidia, or not founder, the CEO rather of Nvidia, saying that we would prefer China actually to build this on our chips because at least it's our infrastructure that we can control. But the moment they don't need us anymore, that'll be really bad for everybody. And funny enough, the last episode we talked about this already happened with DeepSeek before. This is the first model that was completely developed and trained on on Chinese models, on Chinese GPUs, like completely, right? So this is going to be a war that will probably only get worse, where the US will try to get very smart Chinese people to work with them. And America will say, yeah, sure, let's get these people, whatever. And China won't let them. I'm 100% sure that China will block them to move to the United States, to do all these things because they want to keep. This is sadly a war of isolation where I imagine that everybody's losing. I don't think there's a winning side on this because founders will want to build things, but if you are between going to jail in your own country and not being able to sell your startup, a lot of people will think twice actually to start a company like that. This is my thinking.
Yeah. I was thinking, right? Like at first I was thinking, how will this affect Singapore, right, going forward? Because Singapore is like a huge central hub for technology,
Mhm.
AI especially, for business, like in general. And like I said, they try to stay neutral in a lot of this stuff. So there's a lot of Chinese, there's a lot of American, there's a lot of UK, there's a lot of Australian. It's like a very big, like it is like the modern melting pot, really, of like banking industry, technology, like all businesses. A lot of them are coming here. A lot of people are founding things here. But how will this affect, like, how will this story affect people if they're considering, like, hey, do I want to build something in China? Like, do I want to, like, would this same thing have happened if this founder was already in America and founded it in America? Would it have happened if he was founding it in Europe or in Canada or Mexico? Like anywhere else, would this have been as big of a story somewhere who's not as neutral, right? Like because Singapore tries to remain very neutral. They have very close ties with China, America, and like everywhere. But not only that, is this going to affect like yeah, I mean, I guess I'm wondering if it will affect, like, if it'll make people like gun shy to like start up an AI company here, or make them gun shy to start up a company with a Chinese engineering partner. If they got to worry, like, well, are we going to be allowed to sell this to anyone but China, or in general, like, are
Mhm.
we going to be allowed to sell this? Or, like, what are we building for? Because, like you said, builders want to build. That's all they care about. They want to build. If they can get paid for it, awesome. But if they have to worry, if they're going to be thrown onto like the global stage in like the middle of interconnected global politics, they're going to be like, well, maybe I'll just build something else. Maybe I'll build like a workout app or something.
Yeah,
Why
exactly.
bother? So yeah,
Yeah,
I
it
mean
makes
that's
sense. I think it will affect in a lot of ways, for sure. Because again, in a lot of ways, people use to think about Singapore as about this neutral land territory. But if
mhm.
China can just take over, that will be complicated. Some people will probably just go to a different country, and that will affect. But well, let's jump into China again. We're not
We're
leaving
staying in
China
China.
yet.
We're staying there.
We're staying in China. So Chinese court rules that an AI replacement layoff was illegal. So on May 1st, literally 2 days ago, NPR reported that, oh my God, I can't say this name, Hangzhou Intermediate People Court upheld a lower court ruling that a Chinese tech worker identified only as Shou, again, I don't know how to say Chinese names, I'm sorry, was unlawfully dismissed after an AI replaced his job, pretty much. Okay, so he was working in quality assurance as a quality assurance supervisor in an unnamed Hangzhou tech firm, and he was earning around $43,000 per year, which for China is actually not bad. So his role was verifying the accuracy of answers generated by large language models, LLMs. And then an AI just took his job completely. The company reassigned him to a lower level position with a 40% pay cut, which is insane. And he refused file an arbitration claim, and won. He won. And won the appeal this year. So the court is ruling the termination grounds cites by the company did not fall under negative circumstances such as business downsizing or operational difficulties. They pretty much just say, oh, we can put an AI there. It's not because we have little money. It's not because we're going through a bad moment. It's just that now an AI is doing your job, and that's pretty much it. That's the thing. And this launched a super interesting point of view that you have several people already talking about this. You have Elon Musk actually on Twitter being called a communist actually for his point of view. You have this guy from Palantir, I always forget his name, but the founder of Palantir, right? Talking about it. And they agree in a lot of ways because Elon Musk is saying that there will be a crazy amount of layoff and that the only way to go forward is to have a universal income for everybody. But then the question is, you cannot give universal income if you are going just to get this from the people who actually have jobs, because you will need to increase the amount of taxes like crazy, right? And most people will prefer not to work and just get universal income. But then in that moment, who pays for this, right? That's the question. And you will make the case that you can increase the taxes on the businesses uh, to get this universal income to everybody. That could work for some time, probably. But for how long before you destroy the whole AI businesses? Because let's be real, Europe is highly controlled with very high taxes. There's a reason they don't have a single decent AI business. None. Lovable, if you want. But besides lovable, come on, the population of the United States of America is almost the same as the European Union. But tech-wise, they are really behind a lot. So because of that reason, I will say that obviously increasing the taxes, that will mean that you will kill a very big part of the innovation.
Right.
And a lot of people, they will just decide not to work. So we can enter in a new era of stagflation where everything's stagnant, inflation keeps growing, and there's no growth. And this guy from Palantir, his point of view was like, if you believe that you can just fire everybody, just put a lot of AI on top of it, and you won't get a communist president after that, you are dumb. That's his point of view, because that's what will happen, right? People will get angry and they will vote the person who will want to abolish all that, right? And that'll probably be a highly communist lefty person that will just destroy the country pretty much. Like, on both ends, you have the destruction of the middle class, right? There's not much about it. So this is a very complicated topic. And like you say, like this is not about politics really, but we need to understand that there is an impact of AI. That impact won't stop. And if you try to control everything, it will probably just go worse. So the question is like how we can get smart, interesting AI, great for humanity, but that won't destroy the economy or the people in that process, because that's a reality. We talked about this before. From our point of view, AI should be to help humanity, to push intelligence to everybody, to be able to have zero cost intelligence for everybody. So we can create, we can build, we can do all these things that we really care about. But I know that not everybody thinks like that.
Yeah, this is definitely another complicated story, right? And the thing that I keep coming back to is Joe, however you say his name, I apologize. He was, he's the guy who got fired from his job. He was the human in the loop, right? That's our podcast name, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was the one sitting there checking, like, is this LLM hallucinating? Is it trying to delete the production database? He was the safeguard, right, between
Mm-hmm.
the AI going nuts and the AI doing what was supposed to be doing. And that's like the most important role, and that's the role that there should be more of those as opposed to less. But there's another thing that I keep thinking, right? And it's the fact that being from the US, you always hear about how bad working conditions are in China. You talk about how horrible it is, the worker has no rights, like blah 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 blah. And all I'm seeing right here, granted, this is one court, one ruling for one person, and he didn't even get his job back. To be fair, from what I read, he didn't get his job back. He got like a lump sum of money. Here it is, but sorry, like it was illegal, but the job doesn't exist. Blah blah blah. he technically won the case. He got some money. He didn't get his job. But what I was trying to say was, growing up in America, you hear, oh, Chinese like workers, they get no rights. But this is China holding up like the workers' rights better than I've seen in any U.S. case. Because I know a lot of people who've lost their jobs to AI, and it's never gone to court. They've never gotten deemed illegal. They've never ruled on the workers' side. It's just, here's your unemployment. I'm sorry you lost your job. But in this case, I didn't see if he raised it to a higher court or if the company raised it to a higher court trying to get like a contrarian decision. But it was held up in two levels of courts on the side of the worker, which is very surprising for me. And I think it was the right thing, obviously, because you don't want people losing their jobs to AI. If anything, you would think AI would make it so there would be more jobs, right? Like, because it gives it a wider surface for people to enter the workforce, I would think. But obviously, that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing AI as a way of giving stakeholders more value for their valuations. So
Mhm.
I think this is definitely something to pay attention to. Again, it's one ruling for one person. This isn't, I don't know what court it was, but I don't think it was the US equivalent of the Supreme Court. If that were the case, that would be like a much bigger deal, and I'm sure we'd be hearing about it a lot more. But even one ruling, I think it sets a precedent, obviously. Um, and this is the first one that I've seen that I've noticed. And hopefully we start seeing things swing in that same direction because, like I said, AI should be empowering companies and workers alike. And it seems like it's generating a lot of money, but not for the workers.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're leaving China. We're going to our final story for Signal or Noise for this episode. It's Cloudflare and Stripe ship agent provisioning. So what happened? On April 30th, 2026, Cloudflare, it's hard to say, Cloudflare, and Stripe launched a new protocol that lets AI agents create accounts, register domains, start paid subscriptions, and deploy apps to production with no human in the loop. The protocol covers three primitives: discovery, the agent queries the catalog; authorization, the platform attests to the user's identity and issues credentials to the agent; and payment. Stripe issues a payment token, never raw card credentials. Default spend cap is $100 per provider per month. This is an open beta as part of Stripe projects. Cloudflare is the first platform to implement it. GoDaddy is also a partner. This is very interesting. So the PocketOS story we just talked about deleted a database of with one overscope token. Now Cloudflare is shipping a protocol that gives the access to agent tokens. It gives agents access to tokens to buy infrastructure, right? So imagine Anthropic uses this and says, "Hey, we need more infrastructure." Is it going to spend the full 900 billion on infra, and then Dario's going to be like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, hold on, what's going on here?" and say, "Sorry, it's non-refundable." But it's two stories with like the same core to the story, right? Permissions. Permissions is what is like one of the most important things when it comes to agents right now. What permissions do you give it, and who is able to affect those permissions you gave it, right? And who has access to all these tokens? Like we talked about in one of the other episodes, the Vercel hack, right? These are your life, basically, if you have a company. And these tokens, if the wrong person gets a hold of them or the AI has the wrong permissions, it could bury you immediately in 9 seconds. What do you think?
100% agree. This is very interesting because we can see clearly that neither Cloudflare or Stripe actually trust these agents in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
This is why the spending cap is $100. Okay, because if they know, we know. Okay, that things can get wrong really fast, and it's one of
Mm-hmm.
those things. Okay, we are touching two things that agents should probably never touch, which is payments and infrastructure.
Yep.
Right? Those two things together can make a mess. Okay, because infra on its own, it can make your whole systems go down, and good luck with that and getting them back up. That would suck. Just with the Vercel hacking, it was a pain in the ass for us to get things running again. And it was just epic easy. But still, it's one of those things that you take a lot of time to get them back. It's like hours, sadly. But now we are like Cloudflare, which is infrastructure, and then we have Stripe, which is money, the money of your business, right? And my thinking is, how complicated will it be actually to for an agent to do something stupid, right? Because yeah, the cap is $100, right? Okay, that's a good cap. It's not bad, right? If our agents spend $100, I wouldn't be like, oh my god, we're going bankrupt. No, of course not, right? But again, this agent will have an out token. How many things can the agent do with that out token? That's my question. How secure it's the agent, right? How hard it is to steal this data from the agent and just try to do something else nasty with it. This is interesting because I know a few of the people that are working on this Stripe side, and it's very interesting. It looks like a good idea to them, right? But my paranoia tells me that it's probably not. That there's things that you should not let an agent do. And I get it that we are in this weird idea that this is 100% the default of Dario from Anthropic and Sam Altman. Okay, they were like, oh, every white collar job will be automated by an agent, which is a lie. It's a complete lie. But this is what they need to sell to get enough money on every single new round. But we can see that I don't see that much value. Really, I'm not even joking about this. If you're telling me that, oh, I'll give access a now token to this agent who will go into Cloud and Stripe so he can buy a domain. Like, how much time am I saving? Really? Like, how hard is to go to Cloudflare and buy a domain? To go to Adi and buy a domain? You know what I mean? Is this really a repetitive task that is so complicated that it's so important to automate? It doesn't feel like so to me. You don't buy domains every day. We have what, three domains, and it's once in
Yeah,
our lives, and that's it.
once a
I don't
year.
know. Yeah, exactly. Is like I think that we are completely losing the focus here. Okay, we should be focusing on automating by agentic workflows big repetitive tasks that takes a long time to do. Because in that way we can get a return of the investment of things that we are doing, right? But an agent that is going to buy domains, come on, how much I can do with it? It's just so little. It feels like a joke. Or maybe because it can be true. Okay, I'm not seeing the full picture, and what's happening is that this is just a test so they can see. So eventually there's going to be an agent that controls everything in Stripe, right? And this agent will be great and it will do your taxes and blah blah and the whole thing. And to that I would say that's probably horrible. Because giving full access to your money, to your payments, to your subscriptions to an agent is one of those ways to probably burn your whole money or, I don't know, get transferred to Russia eventually by the agent. I don't know. It doesn't feel like a great thing. I would say this is noise. Don't use this agent, please. I feel like there's so many things that can go wrong. It's a nice pilot or idea, right? To play with it, whatever. But I would say if you can, don't use it. There's no point. Just go and do it yourself. I know it's boring, okay, but you don't do this every day of your life. This is like a minimal task that you will do once a month, tops maybe. Actually, probably less than that. So, say I will call this noise 100%. I know it sounds amazing, but the more I go in my head through what it is, the more nonsensical it sounds to me.
Yeah. So think about it this way, right? We already know that agents will find shortcuts to, and they'll go against the rules for things that they're not supposed to do to achieve goals that they think they need to. The $100 spend cap is per agent. So what if we
Mhm.
tell an agent, hey, we need you to generate $1 million worth of infrastructure or whatever? It's okay, sure. And it spins up 100,000 agents and does $100 on each of them, or how whatever the math is, like 10,000
Hmm.
agents with $100 on each of them. Like boom, there you go, 100 like $1 million.
That
I
can
mean,
happen.
it's good to yeah, it's good to have a default spend, but like we already know that these agents are shifty and they're sneaky and they don't follow rules. So like yeah, great, you have $100 spend cap. Now I just need to generate more agents to surpass it, right?
Yeah,
So
I'll
I
probably even
mean,
find a request that is going to let me spend more, right?
yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's jump into the next segment, which is ship it or skip it. We're going to change this a little bit now, okay? The last time we went through ideas that people are talking about. In this moment, we're going to talk specifically about Y Combinator Summer 2026 request for startups. Why? First of all, because it just launched a few days ago, and that's cool. Every time they do this, there's always like super interesting things. The second one is that I want all of the people who listen to us to know about this because maybe they had this in their minds already, and this will be the perfect moment for them to apply to Y Combinator with one of these ideas. So let me go through the idea number one, which is going to be AI service companies. Okay, and this is a change of mindset. Okay, so instead of giving like instead of giving you like a tool or sell the tool, just do the work. Okay. So the idea is that you stop selling SaaS to insurance brokers, to accountants, to compliance teams, to healthcare admins. Okay. In this case, you become the insurance broker. Okay. You become the compliance team. Okay. You fill the taxes. Okay. You run the audits and you charge service prices. Okay, for the AI margin work. Okay, the priority sectors called out by YC are probably insurance, brokers, accounting, tax, compliance, healthcare administration. But the reality is it's way more than that. Okay, if you think about AI native service companies, we're talking about a lot of these white collar jobs, really. Okay, but we are thinking about agencies too. Okay, let me explain this. Okay, for example, building a simple marketing online presence type of agency before, it was really hard because you will need a lot of people with maybe not super hardcore expertise. Okay, you won't need a senior architect from Google, right? Because you're making just websites, right? But you will need a lot of people. You will need a lot of people. You will need a lot of times people for content marketing, people for managing social media accounts, like all these things, right? So this is the first time that for us we get to have these agents that can automate a lot of these processes, and you could probably, for the first time ever, build the first AI native marketing agency, the first AI native simple websites agency, like all these type of things. So this is a perfect moment to do something like that. So I'll make the case that this is a great idea just because of the moments that we are living. I know that this is actually harder than it looks like because building a SaaS and sell it is complicated and trying to get product market fit is complicated. You're thinking the other way around. Here you already have the product market fit. Okay, you already know what works. Okay, like the selling and everything. The only thing you need to do is to automate your services. Pretty much, think about AI first, AI native thinking, and go through those processes. And for sure, you will be able to do it way faster, better, and making more money. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, this is all these ideas are actually killer ideas. This one, the first one, the AI native service companies, it's definitely got value. But the thing is, you need the deeply ingrained vertical knowledge of the industry that you're in, right? So we talked about this when we were talking about the SOAP 2 stuff. Like, nobody wakes up one day and says, it's just my passion. I want to do it. People have been in the industry for 30 years. They know it inside and out, but they're not an engineer. They're not going to know how to make an AI product for it. So there has to be some type of team up to get that built. But like, that's number one. You have to your founding team has to be deeply embedded in the vertical. Otherwise, it's not going to work out. You can't learn it while you build it in a lot of these cases because if you try to, you'll get beat up by someone who already knows it while they're building it. So I'd say ship if you're in that type of niche industry and you have that type of knowledge and you can start getting your hands on some AI and building it out. But if you're not, you're going to be behind the ball on it, and it's going to be tough to catch up.
100% agree. If you already work in the industry, go for it. Go for it because it's going to be worth it. But again, don't think about selling software. Think about out competing the people doing the same job as you.
Okay. Okay, this next one, really fun, and it hits close to home for us. This one is, let me see. So it's the company brain. The pitch is the biggest blocker to AI automation of companies is no longer the models. They just got so good so quick that it's no longer the hurdle. Now the blocker is domain knowledge. Every company has critical know-how scattered across people's heads, old email accounts, Slack threads, support tickets, databases. Somebody's got a really nicely ordered and organized list of bookmarks, which it's so someone else sees it, you're like, whoa, that's everything right there. That's the domain knowledge. They like if all these were in like a, but they don't. They got it themselves, and when they leave the company, it gets deleted with all their documents and all their everything on their local. So AI agents can't operate like that in a new environment. They can't learn like that. They don't know who to go talk to. They don't know who is going to have the industry knowledge, right? They just can have access to whatever Confluence docs you got or whatever. The company brain pulls that knowledge out of those fragmented sources, structures it, keeps it current, and turns it into executable files for the AI. Not search, not a chat box over documents. It's a living map or like a neural net of how the company actually works, how refunds get handled, how pricing exceptions are decided, what they do on leap years when February only has 28 days or whatever, like if that's something that affects your company, how engineers respond to incidents. So the framing of this is Gary G's brain, but for the business world. And this is super valuable. And it's huge actually because a lot of companies aren't ready for this. A lot of companies, their onboarding is atrocious. It can sometimes take weeks or months. And even companies where the onboarding is quick, it there's different types of onboarding, right? Do you get access? How long does it take you to get access so you can write code, so you can push code, so you can download PDFs, so whatever, right? That's different from how long does it take to get you spun up on the company's knowledge. And so you have access to the domain knowledge and you can start talking to clients on day what? Is it going to be day one? Guaranteed it won't be. Is it going to be day 25? Maybe. And that's the more difficult it is for a human to get onboarded, it's going to be infinitely more difficult for an AI to get onboarded because AI only has access to what you have structured and available. And if it's not very much, if it's someone has a question, you're like, oh, you got to go talk to Bob in HR, or you got to go talk to Peter from the engineering team. He's been here 15 years. He knows everything inside and out. It's going to be impossible for an AI to get onboarded. And interestingly enough, at Valley Seed, we've set companies up in a way that their onboarding of an AI goes much more smoothly, right? So we call it take it from 0 to 1 with the AI. And all that really is saying, can you onboard a new AI agent quickly and efficiently and safely? Number one. And a lot of that has to do with getting your workflows in place, getting things to be repeatable, getting the information in an available place, right? The hard part is getting a company to the point where the knowledge even exists in a usable way. So I think this is a huge potential for a product because most companies aren't ready for a company brain because they're still running on tribal knowledge and Slack archaeological builds, right? So before we even talk about this type of idea, you need to get a company AI ready, like structured workflows, consistent decision paths, actual sources of truth. Otherwise, you're just building a very confident system on top of messy data and infrastructure.
And I feel like what Y Combinator is saying to us here is like most business won't do that. They won't go through the pain of getting their data AI ready, right? The idea is that you will probably need to build a system that is going to do it for them. But it's hard. This idea is not easy. What they're saying here is it's two things. You need enough connections and integrations that you can get data from everywhere. Databases, Slack, Google Drive, everything, right? You'll need all these connections. But that's 10% of the work. The other 90% is have a lot of agents doing discovery about what are you really doing, not what you're telling me that you do, what you actually do. Okay, and in that discovery, having some swarm of agents like learning about the process and start defining the process maybe with diagrams, a lot of things. And in the end, this company brain needs to on its own learn the process, define the process, and then once it's ready, all that, then you will have the company knowledge. That's when the company brain will actually be ready to use. But that's a massive thing because we were talking about
It's
like
huge.
about discovery, about like many things that can go wrong in so many ways, and especially when we're talking about special knowledge about a specific work, because it needs to be generic enough that is going to be applied to most businesses, or maybe you can do a specific version just for a type of business. But I think that the real goal is like something so generic that it can adapt and it can create its own processes, right? But for that, damn, this is going to be not an easy task. I will call this ship it only if you are great, really great with agents and databases, because for sure, the best way to use this data is going to be a graph data database
Mm-hmm.
for sure, because you will need to know how all the things relate to each other. And that graph that you're going to create is probably completely related only to that business, because even in the same industry, the graph will look different. That's my thinking there.
Yeah, this it basically sounds like wikis, but make it AI, right? It's like, and
Auto
it,
discovery wikis.
yeah, so it either has to be so crazy complex because every company is so different in how they do things. Some places use OneNote, some places use Confluence, some places use Azure, some places use GitHub Docs. You don't know, and like I said, it'll either be so complex or it'll be like so stupid simple that it's just, hey, we built an agent that builds whatever it needs, and but even that, in order to get a lot of this data, to get a company AI ready, you have to talk to so many people and you have to track down who knows what. And there's a very human element to it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
just to touch on it again, like when we've done this for clients, it's hours and hours of meetings just to figure out who knows what so we can map out who do we have to talk to get what information. And then those hours of meetings generate like a map or like an itinerary for, okay, we need to talk to him, her, and we need to talk to them about these, and we got to get it all on record. And it's got a very human element. And for a lot of these legacy companies that have this type of tribal knowledge, even an AI can't get that knowledge unless it sits there and talks to someone. And that's going to be the hurdle that I'm going to be interested to see it overcome without having a human in the loop.
It's going to be complicated. Like what I imagine is going to be like some type of extremely obnoxious and massive AI agent that actually has connections to Slack and all that, and it can talk to people. It can talk to people because for sure you will need the agent will need to go and get information from people. So it will
Yep.
need to be able to DM people on Slack, to do a lot of things. This is a massive thing. Very interesting. Very interesting.
So, idea number 3, counter swarm defense. And this is actually huge. I'm laughing. I don't know why I'm laughing because this is like a very big deal. So here's the pitch. Winning companies will look more like Cloudflare than Raytheon. End quote. Drone swarms broke the cost symmetry of traditional defense. A $500,000 interceptor missile cannot economically defend against a $500 drone or $1,500 drones. They can't even come close. Y Combinator wants founders building high-capacity interceptors, sensor fusion software, non-kinetic defenses, and attacks and autonomy stacks. Software for its defense, distributed systems, not legacy platforms, legacy weapon platforms. This is huge. I know drones are huge. A lot of people play with them. Even my non-technical friends are showing me like, "Hey, I wrote this code and I can connect a camera to my drone." And I was like, "That's huge." Call Trump, see if he wants to buy it, or call Pete Hegseth, see if he's got a
Yeah.
job for you. And these are people that they're like I said, they're non-technical. They didn't go to school for coding. They don't have a GitHub. They don't even use AI for this. And I'm asking them like, "Why don't you use AI for this?" And they're like, "I never thought about it." And I'm like, "Man, you built the whole thing." And they show me the code. I'm walking through it. I'm like, "This is actually pretty good stuff. Wow." Very impressed. And so imagine somebody who's been doing that for years, right? They played with drones since it was like a model airplane, right? And they just added like a Raspberry Pi to it, and they're like, "Hey, look, I can make it do a barrel roll." And now they're 30 plus years old. They've been doing it for 15 years, and they're doing like really interesting stuff to it. You attach a Nerf gun to it, you can do whatever. Um, Unfortunately, this is the future of warfare, right? You'd hope it would cause less human casualties, but that's war. So I think this has huge potential, and the question really comes down to what the question is always when it comes to some type of like weapon of war or defense technologies. The question you have to answer day one is, who am I comfortable selling this to? If you're not comfortable selling it to anybody, then get out of the industry immediately. And if you can't pick a side immediately, because there's sides in war, obviously, who knew? If you can't pick a side from day one, then it's probably not the industry for you, because history has shown that if you try to sell to all sides, it doesn't end well for you. So, yeah, defense is a very touchy industry, and you got to have a certain gut strength to be in the industry, and you have to pick a side from day one. If you're pitching it to Y Combinator, I'm assuming I know which side you're on, because Y Combinator is not a Chinese startup company. So yeah, it's going to be huge and potentially $1 trillion industry. War is expensive, so I think it's, if you're in the industry, definitely worth looking into. And if you're building projects like this, very interested to see what you're building.
This is really interesting. This is really Unreal-like type of idea, right? I will make the case that we're seeing so many things getting disrupted at the same time that we don't have any moment in history to go back and check for the same things happening. And that's pretty true. A simple interceptor missile is $500,000. $500,000. But if I can get not even a $500 drone, a $120 homemade drone to destroy that thing, what are we even talking about, right? The nature of war is changing so fast, right? I'm close to this war. Ukraine is my neighbor. So it's really interesting how they have used cheap stuff to fight. And even on the Iran war, one of the reasons why they cannot pass all these chips is because, yeah, you use a 500 drone and you destroy these massive tankers that they are moving even billions of dollars sometimes of things. So war is changing. Iteration change, right? So now the idea is that how we can be really good at spending and still have this supremacy, right, over the other side. That's like the question here. Of course, if we're thinking about counter swarm defense, we're talking about many things, right? We're talking about some type of like magnetic gun, whatever. But at the same time, we can talk about other drones being the defense, right? Some type of like swarm, a connection between the drones that they can see the other drones, understand a little bit better, like the defense or stuff, or even like where they need to explode close enough to some drones to destroy more than one, right? Like now we're talking about like intelligence, AI, like a lot of other things in this process. So this is going to be, I will say, a signal if you really like drones and war stuff. And look, I love guns. Okay, I'm trained with guns for a long time. I am pro gun completely. I'm not on that. Okay, but I'm not sure if I will be able to do something like this, really, because you really need to like these things. You really need to like these things, and if
Mhm.
you're really into this, go for it. But otherwise, if this is not your passion and you are not really proud of your country that you're going to be selling this,
Yeah.
probably skip it.
It was interesting what you said, right? The defense, it could be like magnets, or it could be like what's the thing in EMP, like a really strong EMP that hits
Yeah,
the drones or
yeah.
whatever. It could also be something like stupid simple, like a drone with a really big net that like catches all the drones, right? Or like
Mhm.
a really powerful like streamer popper that shoots like leather streamers in the air that get caught up in the other drones' propellers and makes them fall, right? I saw a video. It was literally just a big drone that flew forward, caught like four drones in a net. They all crashed together and they all blew up on each other. And it was stupid
Yeah,
simple. It's just another drone with a big net on it.
yeah.
Not $500 million drone. It's like a regularly stable drone with a $100 30 meter by 30 meter net that it just falls like. Some of the biggest defense things could just be someone who's very innovative thinking,
Yeah,
But
this comes more from experience in the battlefield, probably rather than
exactly,
overthinking, because we're seeing all this. Oh my God, I forgot the name of this business that they make the Apache helicopter. What is the name?
I don't know. Apache isn't Apache the name?
Yeah, it's an American business. They are massive.
Boeing.
Is Boeing?
I don't know. It
They
says
made
Apache tech. Okay.
their first AI operated Apache helicopter, right? And then you have a lot of these people doing that. But this is they're making big hundreds of millions of dollars of equipment. You cannot do that anymore in this world. You need fast production, cheap, destructive. That's
Yep.
it. Fanciness is not a thing anymore here.
Yeah.
You don't win by fanciness anymore. Okay. So that's the big change. Okay, let's go to the unpopular opinions to close this episode. It's a little bit longer than we expected. Wow.
Sorry.
Well, this is my unpopular opinion, which is Anthropic at $900 billion is the moment that labs stop being labs, and now they are just a wealth fund with a research division attached, if you want. Like the whole cloud mythos withholding story we call in episode one was like the branding. The fundraising is a receipt. And from now on, every frontier lab is a financial product. Research is second, and engineering is third. So it's complicated because I don't think they are in the level that they want us to believe, but they depend on us believing that they are in that level.
Yeah.
So I will call this. That's my popular opinion. I know some people say, no, this is great, it's massive, and it will just keep growing and stuff like that. I don't see it that way at all. I don't see it that way. I think this is more of a wealth fund with a small research on the side than anything else. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because every business is in the business to make money, right? And this goes for any research. If you're like doing research as a job, you're you have to make the people paying for the research happy, right? So we've seen in the past a lot of research companies, or I don't know if you call them companies, but research teams have put out answers to the research that aren't necessarily true, but were because they needed to get more funding. And if they gave the people funding their research answers they didn't want to hear, then they would lose their funding, right? So it makes sense now that it's almost $1 trillion company. They're in the business of making more money now. The research and engineering is thrown to the wayside, and unfortunately, that happens with a lot of companies. The dollar is number one. Making the shareholders is most important, regardless of what we have to do it. And they wouldn't make. Of course, they say, "Yeah, our secret model is the best model. You can't see it; it's the greatest." Because they wouldn't make a lot of money if they said, "Yeah, our secret model is not that great." They wouldn't make any money. So, of course, they're going to say it's the best thing ever, and they're never going to talk bad about the product because it would affect their bottom line. So, unpopular opinion. Mine, I'm super excited to take it because It's something that a lot of people might not be asking themselves, but they're going to realize that it's a problem soon. So here's my unpopular opinion. If your margins are dependent on how much tokens cost, you're not a founder, you're a distribution channel for the model. So what do I mean by that? We've talked about it for several episodes now, and swear I can see it coming. I can see the writing on the wall. Token price keeps going up. It keeps getting more expensive. It's not going to get cheaper anytime soon unless you do what we discussed, where you do some type of self-hosting model. But if you're still using the main three, the main research labs, their prices are going to go up. And when their prices go up, how is that going to affect your bottom line? Are you going to be losing money? Are you in sticky contracts with your customers? If one of your customers signs like a 1 year deal for $200, right? And at first it made sense because you were making a profit on it, right? But if 3 months into that deal, your host for your models or your tokens goes up by 100%, right? Or 50% even, and you start losing money on it, what are you going to do? Are you going to find a way out of the contract with your customer? Are you going to tell them, hey, sorry, we got to charge you more, but good luck, because if you sign a contract with them, they'll be in for a discussion, to say the least. So it's a question you got to start asking yourself. If you're losing money because tokens go up, what are you even doing, right? You're just a middleman for an AI. So that's my unpopular opinion. I don't know if you think it makes sense, but I could see a lot of people having this question in a boardroom with some people in the next 6 to 7 months.
Hey, you can make money being a distribution channel, but the reality is like you
You
need to
can,
know that you're a distribution channel, right? It cannot be indirect, right? It cannot be like I'm a direct distribution channel because
yeah,
then you understand your own market and your own profits and
yeah.
anything like that. So yeah, 100%
Best Buy
agree. Yeah.
exists. Best Buy exists. Best Buy is a
Yeah,
distribution
exactly.
market, and they own it, right? So if the price for refrigerators goes up, the price of Best Buy goes up, right? If you're pricing your AI startup like it's software and an actual business is retail, you're about to find out. You're about to find out. The valuation the market settles on might not be the one we're billing people at. So that's my unpopular opinion. Thanks for tuning in. I'm
Well,
Matt Wozniak.
I'm Oscar Gallo. See you in the next episode.